Okay, here we go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah, la'asok b'divrei Torah, la'asok b'divrei Torah, Torah, la'asok b'divrei Torah. Shortened version. There you go.
Thank you, Gary.
There we go.
Gary. All right. So here we are in Leviticus 21:1, and a lot more laws that are important to follow, as always. Who would like to start reading?
I'll start.
All right, Ruth.
The Eternal One said to Moses, "Speak to the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say to them, none shall defile himself for any dead person among his kin, except for the relatives that are closest to him, his mother, his father, his son, his daughter, and his brother. Also for a virgin sister close to him, because she is not married, for her he may defile himself. But he shall not defile himself as a kinsman by marriage, and so profane himself. They shall not shave smooth any part of their heads, or cut the side growth of their beards, or make gashes in their flesh." Interesting, this is where the payas comes from, you know. "They shall be holy to their God, and not profane the name of their God, for they offer the Eternal's offerings by fire, the food of their God, and so must be holy. They shall not marry a woman defiled by harlotry, nor shall they marry one divorced from her husband."
Ruth, if I may ask you to stop in here for a second.
Yes.
Okay. Michael, if you can go back up a little tiny bit before that. Okay, so let's take a look at everything that we're going to be reading from here on out. Moses is now talking about the sons of Aaron. So these are laws for the priests, for the
Right.
Kohens. Okay.
Excellent. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yes. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
Well, we're going to see, because the rules and the regulations that you're going to see here are strictly for the priests.
I understand.
So we're going to read all of those, but it's strictly for them. So that's why I wanted to point it out.
Right. So, I mean, other people can be defiled by the harlotry, you're trying to say. I'm just joking with you. Okay, so let me continue. "They shall not marry a woman defiled by harlotry, nor shall they marry one divorced from her husband, for they are holy to their God. And you must treat them as holy, since they offer the food of your God. They shall be holy to you. For I, the Eternal, who sanctify you, am holy. When the daughter of a priest defiles herself through harlotry, it is her father whom she defiles. She shall be put to the fire. The priest who is exalted above his fellows, on whose head the anointing oil has been poured, and who has been ordained to wear the vestments, shall not bare his head or rend his vestments. He shall not go in where there is any dead body. He shall not defile himself even for his mother or father. He shall not go outside the sanctuary and profane the sanctuary of his God, for upon him is the distinction of the anointing oil of his God. Mind the Eternals. He may marry only a woman who is a virgin, a widow or a divorced woman, or one who is degraded by harlotry, such he may not marry. Only a virgin of his own kin may he take to wife, that he may not profane his offspring among his kin. For
Okay. Yeah, and can we hold on in here for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. If you take a look at 11, he shall not go in where there is dead body. This is presenting a major problem today, and during our lifetime, for the Haredi in Israel. The Haredi are the ultra Orthodox.
Right.
Okay, so imagine that what you have a Haredi who's a doctor. A doctor is gonna come near a dead body. So then what do you do?
Well, I thought that's because they're a doctor, they're kind of,
Well, the text doesn't say if you're a doctor, you're exempted.
yeah, right. I don't
Okay.
know.
Okay, and all right, and the other thing in here is that it has to be a virgin of his own kin.
Mm-hmm.
See
Oh,
that?
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Okay, nobody else had to follow that except the priests.
What does that mean exactly? Is that the Kohens?
Yeah, the
The
Kohen.
Levites?
Well, no.
Oh,
No,
okay.
in the tribe, that's a good question. Michael, remember, in the tribe of Levite, you have two sons. One is Moses. The
Mhm.
descendants of Moses are the Levites. The
Okay.
descendants of Aaron, his brother, are the priests, the Kohens.
Oh, I see. It's separated that way.
And
Okay.
it's separated, okay?
I see.
Oh, okay. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
All right. So I'm going to read this number 15 together because I didn't finish the sentence. That he may not profane his offspring among his kin, for I, the Eternal, have sanctified him. That's important. Okay. The Eternal One spoke further to Moses, speak to Aaron and say, no man of your offspring throughout the ages who has a defect shall be qualified to offer the food of his God. No one at all who has a defect shall be qualified. No man who is blind or lame or has a limb too short or too long. I find this to be very upsetting because this is like, to me, this is like, discrimination. Okay. No man who has a broken leg or a broken arm, or who is a hunchback or a dwarf, or has a growth in his eye, or has a boil scar, a scurvy, or crushed testes. No man among the offspring of Aaron the priest who has a defect shall be qualified to offer the Eternal's offering by fire. Having a defect, he shall not be qualified to offer the food of his God. That bothers me. I don't know if it bothers other people. But
Yeah,
it
in
bothers
today's
me.
day and age, it's hard to read
It's
that.
very hard to follow this. This is very difficult. He may eat of the food of his God, of the most holy as well as of the holy. But he shall not enter behind the curtain or come near the altar, for he has a defect. He shall not profane these places sacred to me, for I, the Eternal, have sanctified them. It just seems crazy that God himself would worry about a human being's defect. There's something really, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to make a parallel here. No animal that has a defect was allowed to be offered as a sacrifice.
Right, we went over that, yeah.
And no male who had a physical defect would become a priest.
Right. I understand.
That's an interesting parallel. Yeah.
I understand. I hear what you're saying. I still don't like it.
I'm not a fan of it either, but I think that it, in the way that they thought, people who had defects, they thought they were caused by something evil inside them. So if you wouldn't want, right, they didn't understand medicine the way that we do. They didn't understand that people are born with a birth defect or something like that. So
Right.
that's how I look at that. That's how I kind of reconcile this based on what I do, which is work with persons with disabilities. Otherwise, I
Right.
wouldn't be able to really read it and feel comfortable.
Right. I agree with you, Annie. I mean, really.
This is very consistent with everything we read over the past weeks. You got you got pink eye. They banish you out to the desert for the rest of your life. How can they then show that someone who has a defect is not holy? I mean, this is big. This is PR here at its greatest.
Yeah.
And only 20 years ago, they were roasting golden calves. So you gotta look at it in perspective.
Yeah, I understand. No, I do understand that. It still bothers me, but I understand it. I do. Okay.
Good points
right.
all around.
Okay. So thus Moses spoke to Aaron and his sons and to all the Israelites. The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, instruct Aaron and his sons to be scrupulous about the sacred donations that the Israelite people consecrate to me, lest they profane my holy name, mine the Eternal's, say to them. Throughout the ages, if any man among your offspring, while in a state of impurity, partakes of any sacred donation that the Israelite people may consecrate to the Eternal, that person shall be cut off from before me. I am the Eternal. No man of Aaron's offspring who has an eruption or a discharge shall eat of the sacred donations until he is pure. If one touches anything made impure by a corpse, or if a man has an emission of semen, or if a man touches any swarming thing by which he's made impure, or any human being by whom he is made impure, whatever is impurity, the person who touches such shall be impure until evening, and shall not eat of the sacred donations unless he has washed his body in water. As soon as the sun sets, he shall be pure, and afterward he may eat of the sacred donations, for they are his food. He shall not eat anything that died or was, wait a minute, where are we? Or was torn by beasts, thereby becoming impure. I am the Eternal. They shall keep my charge, lest they incur guilt thereby and die for it. Having committed profanation, I, the Eternal, consecrate them. No layperson shall eat of the sacred donations. No bound or hired labor of a priest shall eat of the sacred donations. But
Okay,
a person,
if we can hold on to here for a
okay,
second. Okay, in the English it says, I am the Eternal. But if you read the Hebrew just says, Ani Adonai. It doesn't say the Eternal. See it right there?
yeah, I see.
Okay, so why did they translate it like that? I don't know, because all throughout this reading, it's either going to say Ani Adonai or Ani Adonai Elohechem, but in this case it's Ani Adonai,
Right.
because you're talking directly to the priests through Aaron. But
Right.
the translation is I am the Eternal. I don't know why they did that. Does anybody?
I don't know.
Depends on the translation. Michael, where is this where is this copy from?
This is the Torah, a modern commentary by the CCAR, I
Okay.
believe.
Oh, say it's the reform. Okay.
It's a reform, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's reform.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
And
Yeah,
the-
it might be very different if you read the Chumash from the traditional, from the Orthodox or the conservative. Yeah,
Yeah, these are the Reform rabbis, you know.
these are Reform rabbis that translated
They don't
it.
know
So,
anything.
Oh,
yeah.
Dr. Ed.
all right.
No, they do.
So I completely lost my place now.
I
Where
believe
was
you're
I?
on number 10, but I wanted to ask about the
Okay.
sacred donations. I'm just have the commentary up here. So these are, does anyone know what is this the expurgation offering and those offerings?
Yeah, in other words, it's the part of the 10%
purgation,
of
yeah.
the 10% of the animals that go to the priests, to the Kohen.
Okay.
Okay, so remember that all the other tribes had land, but the tribe of Levi did not, and therefore the only way that they could eat is the 10% that they charged from the sacrifices, and the other 90% were the people who offered the sacrifices.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Okay, Ruth, do you want to continue?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to. No lay person shall eat of the sacred donations. No bound or hired labor or a priest shall eat of the sacred donations. But a person who is a priest's property by purchase may eat of them, and those that are born into his household may eat of his food. If a priest's daughter marries a layman, she may not eat of the sacred gifts. But if the priest's daughter is widowed or divorced and without offspring and is back in her father's house as in her youth, she may eat of her father's food. No lay person may eat of it. But if a person eats of a sacred donation unwittingly, the priest shall be paid for the sacred donation, adding 1/5 of its value. Of 1/5 of its value of what? I mean, what does that mean?
That means, oh, it usually, I think it was back, we went over this when they took something and then they had to return exactly what they took plus a
Right.
fifth.
Oh,
Like they
plus
that's
1/5.
like
Okay, now I
an interest
understand.
payment.
Right.
This also brings to mind like David when he ate the sacred bread. Does
Oh, right.
that come up at all?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Well,
he
that'll
probably
be
had to pay
later.
that back, but he was in a hurry. I think he was
Yeah.
he was running from Saul.
Okay, yeah, yeah, but that's way later on. This
That's
is not-
later. That's later.
and
Right?
that's not in the 5 books of
No,
Moses. Okay,
I'm jumping
So,
ahead.
okay.
Sorry.
right. But the priest must not allow the Israelites to profane the sacred donations that they set aside for the eternal, or to incur guilt requiring a penalty payment by eating such sacred donations, for it is I, the eternal, who make them sacred.
Hmm.
You know, the only thing that bothers me about this, I don't know why I have so much trouble with this, but you know, we already know that, you know, that the eternal is sacred, okay? For him to have to keep on saying it over and over again, it makes me feel like he's conceited. I don't know. I don't know why I feel that way. I'm sorry. I have a problem with this.
Gotta make a
too
lasting
modern, I
impression,
think.
right? You gotta
Right,
make a
you try-
lasting
Yeah.
Tom burrito.
And
Yeah.
do you remember, Doctor? Yeah, what were you going to say,
Um,
Gary? I'm
yeah.
sorry, I cut you off.
No, I mean, it's like, you know, it has to be, you know, how do you dwell something into somebody? You got to be repetitive.
Right. And remember too that Dr. Michael brought this up last week too. He always says that the way Moses speaks, he always uses these phrases to instill authority, right? So there's always
Right.
so there's no questions asked. It's just like this is what the Eternal's telling us. So
Yeah.
but it is interesting that we have these rules because again, it does kind of call back into the whole process of the priest doesn't have any he has no way to make food, right? He has no land, no
Right.
anything. So if someone decides to leave the priest's household, okay, you know, carry on, you know, good on you, you know, because now, you know, now he doesn't have to feed them, right? So that's a pretty good thing. Does anyone want to pick up at 17? Ruthie, you're awesome as always. Braca, do you want to go with 17?
Yes,
Thank you.
the Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to Aaron and his sons, and to all the Israelite people, and say to them, when any person of the house of Israel or of the strangers in Israel presents a burnt offering as the offering for any of the votive or any of the free will offerings that they offer to the Eternal, it must to be acceptable in your favor, be a male without blemish, from cattle or sheep or goats. You shall not offer any that has a defect, for it will not be accepted in your favor. And when
Okay,
a person offers,
so Braha, hold on here for just 1 second. Michael, so you see in here, okay, now in this particular paragraph, what we're saying is that God is saying to Moses, this is for Aaron and his sons and to the Israelite people. So now we're going beyond the priests. That's number one. Number two, at the bottom, you cannot offer anything that has a defect. That's what we were saying before. So it
Right.
says it here again. In this particular case, it refers to the animals that are being brought for the sacrifice.
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
And when a person offers from the herd or the flock a sacrifice of well-being to the Eternal for an explicit vow or as a free will offering, it must, to be acceptable, be without blemish. There must be no defect in it. Anything blind or injured or maimed or with a wen, boil scar or scurvy, such you shall not offer to the Eternal. You shall not put any of them on the altar as offerings by fire to the Eternal. You may, however, present as a free will offering an ox or a sheep with a limb extended or contracted, but it will not be accepted for a vow. You shall not offer to the Eternal anything with his testes bruised or crushed or torn or cut. You shall have no such practices in your own land, nor shall you accept such animals from a foreigner for offering as food for your God, for they are mutilated. They have a defect. They shall not be accepted in your favor. The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, when an ox or a sheep or a goat is born, it shall stay 7 days with its mother. And from the 8th day on, it shall be acceptable as an offering by fire to the Eternal. However, no animal from the herd or from the flock shall be slaughtered on the same day with its young.
Okay, so Bracha, hold on here for a second. Let's read again. When an ox or a sheep is born, it's a stay with its mother for 7 days, and then on the 8th day, it could be offered as a sacrifice. What does that remind you of? Anything?
Yeah, circumcision, bris.
Circumcision for the 8th day, right?
Right, yeah.
That makes me sad. An 8-year-old baby lamb we're gonna sacrifice?
Well, you
Is
know,
that right?
we're talking about just, you know, how many times has Ed said to us, this is a different time in our lives.
Ay, that poor sheep. Wow. I know. Okay.
I know.
I
I'm glad I
think-
didn't live in that era. That's all.
I think that this is what they did in Burlington.
No.
Oh, only by the chairman of the Board of Health.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Did you check the papers for that sheep? When was that thing born?
Oh my gosh. I
You're
guess
all
I
right.
have to take it if I give it, huh?
Oh my gosh, you're fine. All right, where were we? 28, I believe, right? Bracha?
Okay, when you sacrifice a thanksgiving offering to the Eternal, sacrifice it so that it may be acceptable in your favor. It shall be eaten on the same day. You shall not leave any of it until morning. I am the Eternal. You shall faithfully observe my commandments. I am the Eternal. You shall not profane my holy name, that I may be sacrificed in the midst.
That's sanctified, not sacrificed. Sanctified in the midst.
That I may be sanctified in the midst of the Israelite people. I, the Eternal, who sanctify you. I, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I, the Eternal. The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelite people and say to them, these are my fixed times, the fixed times of the Eternal, which you shall proclaim as sacred occasions. On 6 days work, may be done, but on the 7th day there shall be a Sabbath of complete rest, a sacred occasion. You shall do no work. It shall be a Sabbath of the Eternal throughout your settlements.
So if we can hold on in here for a minute. In the commandments, it says, remember the Sabbath, for it
Sure.
is holy.
Right.
Okay, in here, it doesn't say remember, it says, you shall do no servile work on the Shabbat.
What?
Dr. Mike, it says, remember and guard.
Remember and guard.
Zachor and Shomer.
Zachor. That's right.
Right, that's
Fourth
Fourth commandment.
correct.
We gotta
Fourth
do
commandment.
both things.
Yeah,
So you have to do what again? You have to
You have to remember and you have to guard.
guard against profaning the
guard.
Sabbath?
what,
Guard
Fourth
is-
commandment. Right.
Remember the Sabbath and guard the Sabbath.
Wow.
okay, the
Like keep
word-
it holy. That's how I look.
You're right.
I think that the word guard in this particular case is probably better said is to keep, to observe,
Okay,
Okay.
right.
as opposed to guard. I think that guard is a little wacko
Yeah.
in this
Okay.
particular case.
You're right. Thank you. Except that I have seen it translated that way.
No, I
That's
understand. But
better.
I think that a better translation is remember it and maintain it and keep
That is better for
right.
Zachor and Shomer. Yes, yes, you're right. Okay. These are the set times of the eternal, the sacred occasions, which you shall celebrate each at its appointed time. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at twilight, there shall be a Passover offering to the eternal. That's right now, right?
Yep.
Right.
And on the 15th day of that month, the eternal's feast of unleavened bread, you shall eat unleavened bread for 7 days. On the first day, you shall celebrate a sacred occasion. You shall not work at your occupation.
Okay, I just want to stop you for a minute. This is something that I've always said. If you notice what she just said, on the 50th day, you should eat unleavened bread for 7 days. You know, there's been a whole discussion about the 8th day, but you don't really need the 8th day. It's really only 7 days that are commanded to eat the unleavened bread. And this has been a discussion between the rabbis, and the traditional people use 8 days, but it's really only 7 days in the Torah.
Okay, Ruth, let me give you a possible answer to that. In Europe, when they didn't know, whether in Eastern Europe it was going to be the same time as, let's say, in Spain.
What's that noise? I can't. Is somebody
Ignore it, please. Ignore it, please.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So when we were dispersed all throughout Europe, and you had people living way over in Eastern Europe, and then other ones in Eastern Europe, and it was very difficult for them to tell the days.
That I do know.
Okay, in Europe, they changed it from 7 days to 8. But
Right.
in Israel, ever since the establishment of Israel, the Passover is always 7 days.
7 days, yes, but that's what I'm saying. I can understand it when they didn't know, because it took like an 8th day to everybody to, but now that everybody knows it's 7 days, I don't understand why anybody, even Hasidim or Orthodox, should do 8 days anymore. That's what I'm trying to say, is that.
All right, my opinion, and I think that bracha is the ultimate expression here of the Orthodox. Once the Orthodox do something, they don't change it.
I got it. Okay.
Like a fiddler on the roof.
Right.
Tradition.
Tradition.
Oh, okay, so that's the answer to all my problems. That's great. Now I understand.
That's okay, Bracha. I just like to know when I see it in the Torah where it comes from.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
this thing in here, what we're talking about is Passover.
Yeah, we're talking about
Right.
Passover. Yeah.
Right.
Right. It is about Passover. What do you think it's about?
Okay.
It
Do
is
we
the
continue?
Passover.
Yes,
Yes.
please. Number
All
7.
right. So on the first day, you shall celebrate a sacred occasion. You shall not work at your occupations. 7 days you shall make offerings by fire to the eternal. The 7th day shall be a sacred occasion. You shall not work at your occupations. The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the Israelite people and say to them, when you enter the land that I am giving to you and you reap its harvest, you shall bring the first sheaf of your harvest to the priest. He shall elevate the sheaf before the Eternal for acceptance in your behalf. The priest shall elevate it on the day after the Sabbath. On the day that you elevate the sheaf, you shall offer as a burnt offering to the Eternal a lamb of the first year without blemish. The meal offering with it shall be 2/10 of a measure of choice flour with oil mixed in, an offering by fire of pleasing odor to the Eternal. And the libation with it shall be of wine, 1/4 of a hin, until that very day, until you have brought the offering of your God, you shall eat no bread or parched grain or fresh ears. It is a law for all time throughout the ages in all your settlements.
Anyone have a comment on this? I always love these things because it just there's such a visual connotation here, right? That the priest is going to elevate a sheaf of wheat or some kind of barley or whatever it is, and it's like it's making the whole agricultural system really holy. And the other thing that I've always loved too is the idea of bringing the first part to the eternal. It's so great. I mean, I'm going to tell you a little story. It's not even really a story. It's just a little observation. Back a few months back, I decided I was going to do this. I was just going to pay to my church the first thing out of my paycheck for just a month. And it felt so different before I paid any bills to pay my church first. It felt so different. It felt like maybe this is the way to do it. I don't know. But because we're, however we are, we're always worried about paying bills. I know I am.
So Michael, we have always had a tithe.
Yes.
Did the Christians have a similar type of thing?
Yeah, we've talked about that all the time. Every Sunday we talk about it. We can't get away from talking about it. It's funny because at the temple, I don't think you guys talk about it at all. It's just like, yeah.
Well, people do it, but they don't talk. I want you to know there's all types of different traditions about tithing. When you just said, oh, this is so unusual for you to tithe before you paid your bills, many people do tithe before they pay their bills because part of tithing, the way I was trained from learning from my husband, who was Orthodox, is that when you tithe, no matter if, let's say you feel like, oh my gosh, I don't have the money for the 10% or 15%, whatever it is that you're going to tithe, that just the tithing alone is going to give you prosperity, and it doesn't have to always show in money. So if you continue to tithe, and I did this in a program, incidentally, that I followed for many years, that when you think you don't have any money, the money shows up because you're always tithing. So it's very interesting. It's not about just tithing when you think you have the money. If you just tithe right away from whatever your income is for that week, and then you pay your bills, you'll be able to pay your bills. I know that sounds kind of hocus pocus, but it works. I've done it, and it has worked. So
I love it.
Religion is big business.
what'd you say?
Religion is big business. It's an interesting comment, Ruth, that you bring up. It's very interesting, and I respect that. At the same time, as a modern Jewish person, I just have to think about it. So I do clearly, Ruth, respect your late husband's feeling and whatever, and have to think about that. But it's an interesting concept today around tithing. There are all kinds of concepts of why even we have Sabbath. Well, it's a day that people could bring money to the religious institutions. When else were they going to do it? They're all working. But I mean, it's a very interesting concept, tithing. And I think Jews, we all tithe, whether we know it or not. We just do it in we just pay it as quote unquote dues. And we all do it the best we possibly can, just like tithing. And I know that our Christian friends do.
Yeah, but Ed, let me just make a comment. That is very much the case in the Reformed temples and in the conservative temples. But there are many Orthodox temples in which, in actuality, every Saturday, you have to donate money. And in fact, in the Orthodox temple, in the Orthodox shuls, let me call it a shul, anytime that you're invited to do something, you normally make a donation.
You
So
pay for it.
you pay, that's exactly right.
I
Yeah.
grew up in the Orthodoxy, and we're talking about the 1960s and 70s, the Orthodoxy of Suffolk Square in Malden. And that was the case. I mean, it was sort of pay as you play. But it all comes through this particular paragraph and others, which imply that, God is great, but you got to pay us to get there. And it's in every, it's, even the widow's mite. We had stories in the, the smallest denomination possible that Jesus was given. I've seen widow's mites and they're tiny, but it's all around, supporting the religion. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's
Yeah, but
absolutely
when I talk about tithing, I'm not talking about only supporting religion. See, that's where we're having a difference of opinion, Ed. What I was talking about is that membership dues is something separate from what I do with tithing, and that's why I want to mention this.
Oh, I
Now,
don't think so.
Wait. Let me just explain one thing. That membership dues can be your tithing if you choose to, but there are people that tithe for the sake of their 10% of their income, or 15%, whatever you want it to be, every single week. And they give it, that doesn't always have to give it to, incidentally, to the temple. It can be, let's say you have a real commitment to the Cancer Society or something. I'm saying it doesn't always have to be just to the religion. And that's where I just feel that when people tithe, whatever it is to, that there's something that comes back. And I took this course called the Prosperity Course, and it said that when you tithe 10%, 10 times comes back to you. It doesn't always come back exactly like money, like, oh, I'm going to get 10 times more than what I tithe, but it comes back to you. And I've seen this over the years. That's what I'm talking about, not just the religion. It's hard to explain unless you've done it. So I've done it for a long time. And
Ruthie, I'm going to take your words to heart. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Ruth.
I just find that it doesn't affect your income. You don't have to do, like you said, like if it's a widow, and incidentally, my husband's mother was a widow, very young, and she always tithed, even though, she had very little money, so it works. I don't know, it just works.
It is in the
I just want to this is an interesting concept. At the end of this call, as you know, I like to do something interesting, and I was able to acquire something which goes right along with the tithing. So don't let me forget, because I have some things to show you that most people have never seen or ever will see in their life, and I had an opportunity, and this goes right along to tithing, to add to my Chazarai collection.
Okay.
Which means garbage.
What were you going to say, Bracha?
Yeah, Bracha, I think you had something.
Go ahead.
No, it's in the text.
Yeah.
It's in the text, and I have it marked a few feet from here.
Okay.
I have it marked. I don't have it in my hands here. What you're saying, Ruth, is in the text.
Right. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Is it this text that we're reading, or is it a different text?
I have to go. I would have to go get it. As soon as I'm through reading, I'll do that.
Okay. Why don't you take a break, and who wants to pick up at, I think we're at 15? Yeah. 15?
Okay.
Yeah, Ed, Dr. Ed, go for it.
No, we have a guest tonight. Would she like to do that?
Oh, yeah, Monique. How about Monique?
Monique, you have to unmute.
Where are
She
we on
isn't a
15?
guest.
Are we on 15?
Yes, I
Yes.
believe
Yes,
so.
we are. Yeah.
Yes. And from the day on which you bring the sheaf of elevation offering, the day after the Sabbath, you shall count off 7 weeks. They must be complete. You must count until the day after the 7th week, 50 days. Then you shall bring an offering of new grain to the Eternal. You shall bring from your settlements 2 loaves of bread as an elevation offering. Each shall be made of 2/10 of a measure of choice flour, baked after leavening, as first fruits to the Eternal. With the bread you shall present as burnt offerings to the Eternal 7 yearling lambs without blemish, 1 bull of the herd, and 2 rams, with their meal offerings and libations, an offering by fire of pleasing odor to the Eternal. You shall also offer 1 he-goat as a purgation offering.
Wait, he'll putting it up.
Yeah. Hang on one second though, Monique. Is this the counting of the Omer?
Well,
Counting 50
no,
days?
it's something similar, Michael, but if you take a look at this thing in here, it says, the part that says you must count until the
Yeah,
day
that's
after the
counting of the
50
Omer.
days. So there is your Omer right there.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's amazing.
Okay, bring it up now so she can continue.
Oh, okay. The next one. Okay.
And 2 yearling lambs as a sacrifice of well-being. The priest shall elevate these, the 2 lambs, together with the bread of the first fruits, as an elevation offering before the Eternal. They shall be holy to the Eternal for the priest. On the same day you shall hold a celebration. It shall be a sacred occasion for you. You shall not work at your occupations. This is a law for all time in all your settlements throughout the ages.
Okay, we hold on for a minute. Michael, if we're talking about 50 days, 7 times 7 plus 1 is 50. What Christian denomination is named after that?
Seventh-day Adventist.
The Pentecost.
The Pentecost.
Pentecost means 50 in Greek.
Oh man.
Those
You
are
got me.
aren't those the weeks following Easter?
Yeah.
Just like the weeks following Passover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So you've got the Seventh-day Adventist, but that could be a week.
Yeah.
But you're talking, the 7 times 7 plus 1 is 50. Pentecost is 50th day or 50th anniversary, 50th day, according in Greek. So that's where they got the name.
Wow. Is Pentecost in Judaism too or no? No.
Well, it's
That's
what we call
Shavuot.
counting the Omer.
Shavuot. Okay. So that's where
Shavuot,
they just have
well,
different. We just have different names for different.
Well,
occasions.
it's not that it's called Shavuot. It's that at the end of the 50 days, then we celebrate the Shavuot. So remember, the 50 days is from the beginning of Passover until
So when we got the Torah from Mount Sinai. Yeah.
until you get to Shavuot, which is 50. So it's not called Shavuot. Shavuot is the 2 days that we're going to be celebrating, in fact, pretty soon.
Shavuot, but we
Right.
celebrate the giving of the 10 Commandments and the five books of Moses.
That's right.
Fantastic. All right. Where were we? Monique.
And there's one more and one more thing, Mike, as long as we're talking about this thing. Right now we are, of course, on the month of ER. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. What do we celebrate every year on the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer? What is that called?
Lag BaOmer.
Lag BaOmer.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike.
It's supposed to be a good time to get married and do stuff like that, or get
In fact,
engaged.
if I take a look at my calendar,
Graduations come around,
Yeah.
Shavuot, all those stuff.
okay, so Lag BaOmer starts on the evening on Wednesday, the 28th, and is the day of the 29th. So it's this Thursday. This
Wow.
coming Thursday.
It's coming up.
Coming up.
Thank you, Dr. Mike. That's something. All right. Are we on 21, Monique?
Yes. On
Okay.
that same day, you shall hold a celebration. It shall be a sacred occasion for you. You shall not work at your occupations. This is a law for all time in all your settlements throughout the ages. And when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap all the way to the edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I, the Eternal, am your God. The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelite people thus, in the 7th month, on the 1st day of the month, you shall observe complete rest, a sacred occasion commemorated with loud blasts. You shall not work at your occupations, and you shall bring an offering by fire to the Eternal. The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, mark the 7th day of the 7th month as the Day of Atonement. It shall be a sacred occasion for you. You shall practice self-denial, and you shall bring an offering by fire to the Eternal. You shall do no work throughout that day, for it is a day of atonement on which expiation is made on your behalf before the Eternal your God. Indeed, any person who does not practice self-denial throughout that day shall be cut off from kin, and whoever does any work throughout that day, I will cause that person to perish from among the people.
Okay, all right, so if we can hold on here for a second, Michael, if we go to 23 or 24, speak of the fifth on the 7th month, on the first day of the month. The first 2 days, that's Rosh Hashanah. Okay?
Right.
And then
Okay, then if we go down
Yeah.
to the next one, is on the 10th day of the 7th month. That
It's
is
the Day
Yom
of
Kippur.
Atonement. Right.
Okay?
and what's that? Yom Kippur?
That's Yom Kippur.
Yeah, that's Yom Kippur. Right.
Now, did you notice this one too? This reaping the harvest of your land?
Yeah,
Don't.
that's Shavuot.
Mhm.
That's Sukkot.
That's
Sukkot.
Shavuot. That's Shavuot.
Wow, that's amazing.
Oh,
It just
okay,
all
so
goes in together with the Jubilee year, right? The year
That's-
of
that's correct. On the 50th year, you have to let the land
let the land
Right.
go back.
rest and so on. Yep.
And wait a minute, and I'm going to say something. The Jubilee also, and the thing about the every 7 years you're not supposed to do something with your crops. It has to do with tithing too, in a one way. Not tithing like with money, but it brings on more crops for you. Is what I'm trying to
laying
say.
Fallow. It's your crops need to be laying fallow in the 7th year.
Yes. But
Yeah.
but by doing that, you're getting more abundance of crops. Is what I'm
Correct.
getting at.
It
Is that there
allows
is
nitrogen to be regenerated.
yeah, everything needs to be regenerated.
Okay, and Ruth,
Hallelujah.
since you are so knowledgeable, what happened?
I'm not that knowledgeable.
You're the most knowledgeable here tonight. What happens on the Jubilee year?
The
Say that
debts are
again.
repaid. No, they're canceled. My
Say that.
favorite.
What was the question again? I lost some of it.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Okay, so what you were saying, and I think that Dr. Red said it correctly, every 7th year, you have to let the land lay fallow,
Right.
so that the land can be replenished, and it is correct, with nitrogen. Okay, so that is every 7th year. What happens on the Jubilee year, which is the 50th year?
I forgot.
The land has to be returned to the original owners.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh yes. Yes. All right. That's right. That's right.
All right. Where are we again? Number 31. Monique, you want to keep going? I'll change the page for you right when you.
Okay.
Number 31.
Do no work whatever. It is a law for all time throughout the ages in all your settlements. It shall be a Sabbath of complete rest for you, and you shall practice self-denial. On the 9th day of the month at evening, from evening to evening, you shall observe this your Sabbath. The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, say to the Israelite people, on the 15th day of the 7th month, there shall be a feast, there shall be the Feast of Booths to the Eternal, to last 7 days.
That's Sukkot. Okay, go
That's
ahead.
what.
The
That's
first
Sukkot.
day, the first day shall be a sacred occasion. You shall not work at your occupations. 7 days you shall bring offerings by fire to the Eternal. On the 8th day you shall observe a sacred occasion and bring an offering by fire to the Eternal. It is a solemn gathering. You shall not work for your occupations. Those are the set times of the Eternal that you shall celebrate as sacred occasions, bringing offerings by fire to the Eternal. Burnt offerings, meal offerings, sacrifices, and libations on each day what is proper to it. Apart from the Sabbaths of the Eternal, and apart from your gifts and from all your votive offerings and from all your free will offerings that you shall give to the Eternal. Mark on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the yield of your land, you shall observe the festival of the Eternal to last 7 days. A complete rest on the first day and a complete rest on the 8th day. On the first day, you shall take the product of hadar trees, branches of palm trees, boughs of of leafy trees and willows of the brook, and you shall rejoice before the Eternal your God 7 days. You shall observe it as a festival of the Eternal for 7 days in the year. You shall observe it in the 7th month as a law for all time throughout the ages. You shall live in booths 7 days. All citizens in Israel shall live in booths, in order that future generations may know that I made the Israelite people live in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I, the Eternal your God. When Moses
Matovu, do, 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 matovu. Does that remind you of that? It reminds me of that.
And the lulav, the
The
branch.
lulav and the esrog, right?
Yeah.
Is this all the Feast of Booths for the last two
Yes,
paragraphs?
this is all about
Yep.
Sukkot, right?
Sukkot.
Sukkot is Sukkot.
I didn't know it was like a solemn occasion. I thought that was like fun times to be in the.
Well, it is, but it's solemn but fun too.
Hmm.
I'm gonna
Nothing has to be always just solemn.
I'm going to pass on the reading.
Okay,
You did a great
I-
job, Monique.
fantastic, Maureen.
I think it's
Fabulous.
interesting about the palms.
Yeah, the palms.
Well, that's the lulav. We talk about that with the lulav, you know.
Wow. Yeah, because we have the Palm Sunday one for Christians, which is it's a little different, but it has leafy bits. All right. Who wants to pick up at 44?
I can.
Dr. Ed, thank you.
So Moses declared to the Israelites the set times of the Eternal. The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, command the Israelite people to bring you clear oil of beaten olives for lighting, for kindling lamps regularly. Aaron shall set them up in the tent of meeting outside the curtain of the pact to burn from evening to morning before the Eternal regularly. It is a law for all time throughout the ages. He shall set up lamps on the pure lampstand before the Eternal to burn regularly. You shall take choice flour and bake it of 12 loaves, 2/10 of a measure for each loaf. Place them on the pure table before the Eternal in 2 rows, 6 to a row. With each row you shall place pure frankincense, which is to be a token offering for the bread as an offering by fire to the Eternal. He shall arrange them before the Eternal regularly every Sabbath day. It is a commitment for all time on the part of the Israelites. They shall belong to Aaron and his sons, who shall eat them in the sacred precinct, for they are his as most holy things from the eternal offerings by fire, a dew for all time. There came out among the Israelites a man whose mother was an Israelite and whose father was an Egyptian. And a fight broke out in the camp between that half Israelite and a certain Israelite man. The son of the Israelite woman pronounced the name in blasphemy, and he was brought to Moses. Now his mother's name was Shelomith, daughter of Dibri of the tribe of Dan, and he was placed in custody until the decision of the Eternal should be made clear to him. And the Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, take the blasphemer outside the camp, and let all who are within hearing lay their hands upon his head, and let the community leadership stone him.
Okay, Ed, hold on just 1 second. What is the definition of a blasphemer?
Someone who,
We're talking about blasphemy, right? So what is blasphemy?
Someone that uses the name of the Lord God in vain,
Bingo. Yep.
or denounces or something.
The
But
name,
this seemed to come out of nowhere, right? All of a sudden, I thought we were talking about holidays. What happened here? It's like all of a sudden, whoop, we went right to the blasphemy. Okay.
Mike is
Moving right along. All right.
Chapter 2.
Up to
Israelite
50.
people speak thus: anyone who blasphemes God shall bear guilt, and one who also pronounces the name Eternal shall be put to death. The community leadership shall stone that person. stranger or citizen, having thus pronounced the name, shall be put to death. If anyone kills any human being, that person shall be put to death. One who kills a beast shall make restitution for it, life for life. If anyone maims another person, what was done shall be what was done shall be done in return. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. The injury inflicted on a human being shall be inflicted in return. One who kills a beast shall make restitution for it, but one who kills a human being shall be put to death. You shall have one standard for stranger and citizen alike, for I, the Eternal, am your God.
Okay, Dr. Ed, hold on just 1 second. We just went through one of the, Michael, we just went through one of the most quoted parts of the Bible, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth.
But it's not meant that way. What it's meant is that it doesn't mean that if I took out your eye, you take out my eye. It means that you have to make restitution, meaning that, you know, if you, let's say you hurt my, whatever cost for losing my eye, you have to make restitution for it.
Yeah.
You know what?
Of
How many
equal value.
millions of people would die because of this paragraph, have died in the history?
I know.
How many people have died due to this single paragraph?
I agree. I think it's terrible. They never understood it correctly. Right.
I think it might have been a deterrent. But
Sure.
what are you saying, Gary? I'm sorry, Gary.
No, just it's supposed to be of equal value.
Equal
Right.
value,
Yeah,
not that it's,
no
you don't take
restitution,
somebody
yeah.
else's eye out because your eye got broken, you know.
And no, and as Dr. Michael says, no,
But
not more than, not more
But
than
you know
enough, not more
something,
than.
I have
And
heard
as Reb
Christians-
Tavia said, the whole world shall be blind and toothless.
Yeah. Listen, but what's interesting is that this is where I have heard Christians say that the reason why a lot of people went to Christianity, because they read most of what in this past chapter is that God was a very angry God. I mean, I'm not saying that's what it was, but they were saying, you don't do this, you're going to be put to death. And that's where I've heard from Christians saying that, you know, that Jesus was more loving and that, you know, and that's, I've heard that. I'm just curious if you've heard that, Mike and Annie, you know, in your Christianity.
It's hard to say because Jesus could be very condemning. I mean, he talks about throwing people in the fire. I mean, it's I mean, he doesn't say it directly, but he'll say it in parables. And so, yeah, he says some beautiful things. And I'm down with Rabbi Jesus. I really am. I'm not going to say.
Well, let me say
But,
it. The famous, I cannot remember his name, the very, very famous Roman Catholic priest was once asked, what is the Christian thing to do here? And the answer was, kill you. Because so many people, whether we start with Christianity and move through Protestantism, has been very clear. More people have died from the time of this paragraph to today. Millions and millions of people in the name of God.
Right.
So what is the godlike thing to do? Kill you. And that's really true. And when it's come to anti-Semitism, he was speaking in that vein to a mostly Christian audience. Was, you know, think about the Crusades, where they said the streets were flooded with blood. So this, you know, so this is a very tough paragraph. Whether we think it's restitution, it has never been a topic of restitution until modern times.
Right.
Right. I mean, I think some of the other things that need to be thought of as well is that there's no prisons. I think Dr. Michael brought out that another rabbi came up and said, you know, they had to somehow deal with crime and punishment, right? And I believe
it was
crime
so
is always going to be
intense.
crime, but
But it was
punishment's
so
always going to be different.
intense. I mean, there was no, it doesn't show where you could make amends, like, this is it, you die if you do this, you
Right.
die if you do that. I'd like to hear about more of the amends that you could do. And that bothers me about this. It does. It bothers me that there's not enough amendments that you could do to save yourself, you know.
Right, but then we remember the scapegoat from last week too. There was certain things that were built in, and I think, you know, they did the best they could.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna say that I when I read Torah, I read about a loving God here. I really read that this is a God who is so concerned with this group of people that God is going to go out of God's way to get these people where they need to go. And I just can't think of another loving thing that could happen. And I know that there's some pretty harsh things here, but
You know,
it
now
was a
I'm gonna
harsh
say-
time.
Now I'm going to say something positive now that I've been so negative.
Oh, thank you. Thank God, Dr. Ed.
Okay? You just blasphemed.
What did I say? What did I say now?
You used my name and his in the same sentence. You've got to realize that prior to this, the population were animals, were literally animals. They had no idea of morality. They have no idea of
Right,
ethics.
that's
They had
true.
no idea for
That's
law.
true. That's
This-
true.
This was an attempt to bring humanity to the human beings. Because
Yes.
before that, this was, think how long ago this was. This is 5,000 and 6,000 years ago. People were a little bit more than wild animals.
They were barbaric.
They were barbaric.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
were. They were.
This is God saying, okay, if we are going to be able to make people 5,000 years from now to go to the moon and to provide heart transplants, I got to get them started because
Right.
they can't do it themselves.
Yeah,
Preach
it's
on,
saying-
Father Ed.
yeah.
And it has to be the strongest deterrent. You know,
You got
has
it.
to- yeah. You know, it can't be
So I
too
think there's
soft
one more
and squishy.
paragraph,
You know, it's-
23, and then what's the end after 23?
Moses spoke thus to the Israelites, and they took a blasphemer outside the camp and pelted him with stones.
Oh, God.
The Israelites did as the Eternal had commanded Moses.
Okay, we got it. All right.
What's done is done. Okay. Well, it was a tough one this week, but we got through it.
Monique, I'm sorry you had to come through this one.
I
Yeah,
just
that,
love
that was a tough read.
This is a tough one.
Yeah, if Cynthia were here, she would have a few words about it too. I'm
So
sure.
Yeah,
where is
I'm
Cynthia?
sure
She went to the other lecture tonight.
Oh yeah, there was another. We had
Yeah.
competing interests.
Yeah, Cynthia and Myrna were at the other lecture tonight. Yeah.
Well, this is law. Where's Alba tonight?
Alba's over there. Alba, you were listening.
Here.
She-
Listening to you
She's
all.
always in the background.
she's in the background. I can't get it. She's always moving. She, you know, I tell her at 8 o'clock, we got to take your batteries out. Rest, you know, because she'll go and go and go. She's like the Energizer.
Right here, listening.
Yeah,
to
she's
everybody,
resting.
learning a bit of what's going on.
Yeah, it's always good. It's always good to learn.